So let's talk a little bit about source control. In the course, one of the parts of the course is to use source control, which is a best practice for coding applications and Python solutions. So the most common open source source control is Git. And there's actually two main competitors out there who offer both a free tier as well as a priced tier for an online version of Git. And so, as part of the course, we ask that you create yourself, if you do not have this already, create yourself a Git account on one of these two, or if you want to bring another online service which has source control, happy with that. Just as long as we have access, I have access as the instructor to go in and take a look at your submissions. Now, we will submit the final version of the code through Blackboard, and that's what we'll use for the official version. But as well, we want to also have the best practice of using a source control, and you actually get experience working with source control. So that's why we also have Git incorporated into it. So let me just show you kind of a quick way for this. If you want to start with GitHub is where we'll start. So here, if you just put in your email address, like and then if you hit sign up, it'll take you to a sign up screen. And then you'll create a password. And then if you hit continue, then it'll send you a confirmation email that'll allow you to log in. Once you're logged in, let me pull across one of my repositories real quick. You'll have something, this is one that has some repositories already in it, but you'll have something like this, but this will be blank. So what you would do is you'd click on new repository, you click on repositories here, and then you click on new repository. Now here's where you can actually create a new one, and so you'll see it'll have your user ID up here. This is mine for this particular account, and I'm going to put in there 747 student. And in a description, this is optional. Now, visibility. It defaults to public, which means anyone on the internet can see the repository. You can also default it to private. If you default it to private, then you'll have to give me access to it as well as the instructor so that I can go in and I can take a look at your submissions. Now, the final submission for grading is going to be sent through Blackboard, but you'll keep your individual work products as you build that up. You keep those within your Git repository. Now, we do this because that's a best practice. Being able to have that source control is a best practice. So we would like you to practice with this as part of the academic experience, to practice with using Git. The next options here, as you initialize a new repository, you can go ahead and have it add a README, which I'm going to go ahead and do. Git ignore. So there'll be some files that you may want to upload, some files that you don't. So let's say, for instance, your local copy, you have a password file. Well, you don't necessarily want to make your passwords visible to everybody on the public. So that would be something that you would add within a git ignore file. So this can actually create a git ignore template right off the bat. Now, for us, you can see we can kind of go down here, and it has a whole bunch of different kinds of languages. I'm going to go ahead and select Python. So I'm going to go ahead and create a git ignore as well. And then licensing. Again, this is another optional piece of it. So they have several different versions of the licenses that are out there. You can choose not to have a license, it doesn't matter, but especially for open source projects, it's good to select one of these, and you can read through and make the decision on which one's most appropriate for you. For my case here, I'm just going to use this as MIT license, and then I'm going to initialize the repository by hitting create right here. Now what it's done is it has created a blank repository for me. It's added a README, which is what we can see here. We can edit that README, and it's in simple markdown by hitting this little check right here. And then you can see you get a markdown, and you can just go ahead and edit the changes. When you're done, you can hit commit, and it saves your changes back. Here's the license which I initialized, and so it automatically puts in a license for me. And then here's that git ignore. So within Python, here are some of the things that you would want to exclude. These are like default libraries and things along those lines that you would have. These would be things that you'd want to exclude as part of that. So you weren't storing these default pieces up there. Those are something that you would just use just at runtime. So then in order to add a file, it's fairly simple. You can add a file right here by doing an upload or by creating. And you can also kind of look at the code, and this is a way which you can get it from within your tools. So we'll show that again later as well. Now GitHub also offers a desktop version of this, and so you can actually choose open it in desktop Git, and it'll open it for you there too as well. We're going to just keep it simple for right now, but that's the basics of navigating around Git. And so as you finish off files, it's good that you could go and keep them within your source control. Now, typically a repository, this will be a whole subject. So this is for data 747. We can create new files here, and you can even create individual folders as part of that too as well. Okay, so that is GitHub. Now let me show you GitLab. This is a competitor to that. It's a very similar type interface. To sign in, you can go ahead and choose free trial. You fill out this, and you'll go ahead and get your login credentials. You can also register in with Google. Now again, notice that this one has a 30-day trial, so I typically steer students towards GitHub as opposed to GitLab. But this will at least give you this. And GitLab has a very similar type interface. Let me show you that. So here's my main repository right here. If I want to create a new project, it's /repository. It gives you some templates that you can use. I'm just going to ahead and choose a blank project. And then very similar type activity here. So you can go ahead and put. And you see here as it's creating the path, it'll also have the project name right here. It's optional that you can choose where you're going to target this. So they've got some built-in integration too as well that allows you to push it out to clusters, Heroku, etc. Public and private works essentially the same way as GitHub. Initialize the repository and static application testing. This is a more advanced feature of this as far as doing security testing on your repositories. We won't mess with that here, but you could also initialize it. I'll initialize it with a README. Here's our project, and you can see that it has a very similar type feel to it. It also has the README, so that within the README, you have the ability to go and edit it, very similar to what you had in GitHub. So that just gives you a quick rundown of it. We'll talk a little bit more in detail as we go into the individual weekly assignments. We can talk about cloning and actually saving it down within your Jupyter instance, etc. We'll talk about that a little bit later as part of the coursework. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out on the forums or directly an email to your instructor. Thank you.